Emissions from animal agriculture are controversial. The United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization was the first to put a figure on emissions from livestock, finding them responsible for 18%, and then they revised this down to 14.5% of global emissions. But there are wildly different estimates out there as well. In 2009, a World Watch article found animal agriculture to be the source of half global emissions. And now, a discussion paper by systems engineer Sailesh Rao finds farmed animals to be the cause of 87% of global warming. 87%? How on earth could that be true? This video series will explore those claims. We also look at how we've bred an animal colossus that has squeezed out wild animals with the help of nitrogen fertiliser. We examine the historic deforestation and see how, over human history, fossil fuel emissions are actually less than deforestation emissions. That's interesting. We delve into the dark arts of greenhouse gas accounting and see why animal emissions are so controversial, even explosive. That's a joke. Methane explodes. We look at the short-term emissions and see how warming from different gases is compared. We see how aerosols that are emitted when we burn fossil fuels actually cause cooling, working against the warming from carbon dioxide. I deep dived into agricultural emissions when researching the Beyond Zero Emissions Land Use Plan. That was a plan to bring Australian land emissions to zero. And we had a few surprises. For example, we found that the single largest agricultural emissions source, deforestation, is not even considered an agricultural emission. And more than that, deforestation is accounted for as a net emission after regrowth on other land is subtracted. That's by the United Nations IPCC Convention. These conventions are by intergovernmental agreement, so they're backed by science, but they're ultimately political. Another example, using 100-year global warming accounting as per the United Nations Convention, it's arbitrary. It has no strong basis in science. Also, by convention, some emissions are not counted in greenhouse inventories, not even counted, even though they have a big impact. Many of these are due to animal agriculture from sources like pasture maintenance fires and deforestation fires. When we did the sums for the BZE land use report, we included these uncounted emissions and teased out the net deforestation emissions. We also reported sector contributions with both 20-year and 100-year greenhouse gas accounting. So over the shorter period, 20 years, we found that ruminant production alone, that's sheep, cattle, goats, was responsible for over half of Australia's national emissions. We knew that these findings would have a hard time being accepted in a nation where beef is such a large export industry and Aussies love their barbie. So we wrote a paper arguing our methods and laying out our findings to publish in a peer-reviewed journal. But we could not get a high-ranked journal to publish our paper, mostly because we could not get a leading scientist to review the paper. We eventually published in a lower-ranked journal, but the peer review process was superficial. That opened my eyes to the difficulties in gaining an open debate about animals and climate. To work through claims such as ours, the scientific process requires a robust debate to argue each case, but these studies have largely fallen on deaf ears. So these videos came about because it's hard to talk about emissions from this sector. There are so many vested interests and scientists wary of damaging their careers that open debate is stifled. The information we present in these videos might challenge our understanding of global warming, but it does more than that. When we look at it closely, it reveals that humanity has a large, undeniable blind spot, and it's all about food and forests and how we use our planet. But this is the good news story. We will learn how we have the power to roll back dangerous climate change and at the same time fix the extinction crisis. we can be the superheroes that our kids and their kids are wishing for and protesting about. So watch the series and prepare to be amazed.